Good morning, good afternoon or good evening, wherever you are in the world. I hope you're very well. You're listening to Autistic Voices. I'm Evelyn Charmer. I'm a paediatric therapist and I'm the director of EdElf Child Therapy and its sister training company for therapists, the Child Hypnotherapy Institute. And I've recently been diagnosed autistic myself. So I'm very inspired to bring you a diverse and rich range of autistic voices from the community. People who are diagnosed, people who are not diagnosed, people who work alongside and collaborate with autistic families or autistic adults, people who identify as neurodivergent. Please come and join the conversation. I'd love to hear from you. You can email me at Evelyn, that's EVALYNNE, at childhypnotherapyinstitute.com or contact me via the show. Thank you for joining me with Autistic Voices. Hello listeners, Evelyn here from EdElf Child Therapy and the Child Hypnotherapy Institute. Hope you're well. And before I introduce the podcast guest this time, I just want to give you a little update. So some people have been asking me, what's happening with EdElf Child Therapy? What's happening with the Child Hypnotherapy Institute? So for those interested, I'm going to just give you an update. If you're not interested, go and make yourself a drink or have a poodle and a little walk or take your dog out in the garden or whatever, and you can come back in a few minutes while I introduce the podcast guest. So for those interested then, so EdElf Child Therapy, we work with children and young people predominantly. We also do work with adults. We do a lot of work with parents and carers and families. And my specialism is in working with neurodivergent children and young people. And it's online video link therapy, which means you can access it from anywhere at all, whether you're living, in the UK or somewhere else. And as long as your child, young person, can access the internet and is happy to work on video, then they can access the therapy that we offer. And I do have growing pool of associate therapists as well that I've been busy training over the last couple of years. And, so we offer all sorts of things, and it's a combination of techniques. So not everyone wants hypnotherapy, although it's fantastic as a resource for helping reduce anxiety, change unhealthy or unwanted habits and coping strategies that are not particularly helpful for us, changing our mindset into more positive psychology. But we also use lots of tools and techniques taken from CBT, cognitive behavior therapy, dialectical behavior therapy, DBT, positive psychology, and solution focused counseling. And we use things like zones of regulation to help co-regulate. We use all sorts of things. Sometimes we use restorative justice kind of work, or restorative practice, as I call it. And we have a variety of techniques and skills that we can use with children and young people and young adults to help them overcome things that they feel they want to overcome. We are definitely not ABA. And I don't promote the work of ABA, and it's not something that is part of our value system, just to be clear on that. And the Child Hypnotherapy Institute is the training department of EdElf Child Therapy. And at the moment, we are running a variety of training programs, CPD accredited. So that means that they are quality assured through the CPD, which is Continued Professional Development Accreditation Service in the UK. And they count as CPT hours. So they are for therapists, hypnotherapists in training or qualified who want to improve or increase their skill set for working with children and young people. So some people have been asking me, what courses have you got available? So I'm just going to give you a very quick rundown. You can find all the courses and all the information about what we do in therapy and training on the website, which is www.edelfchildtherapy.com. So we've just finished an accredited course in pediatric hypnotherapy. So I just want to shout out a massive well done and thank you for your engagement in that program to Abigail and Charlie and Hannah, who finished that yesterday. So fresh off the press. Is that the word? Is that the phrase? There's another one of those live courses. It's a 2-day live course coming up as well. If you're interested in pediatric hypnotherapy, CPD, it's a really fantastic couple of days and full of loads of resources and you get loads of helpful things that you can take away and start using straight away with children and young people. On September the 10th, we've got therapy assessments for children and young people. That's looking at particularly looking at things like anxiety and anxiety assessments and how to conduct those, how to use them, and also how to interpret them into therapy plans. September the 30th, I've got day 1 of working with neurodivergent children and young adults. And on October 29th, there's day 2 of that. And just sort of scrolling through. Yeah, we've got December the 3rd and 10th. We've got pediatric hypnotherapy again. It's only a 2-day program, so there's lots of them. December 16th, self-harm in children and young people. I'm sure you'll all agree it's something that everybody working with young people should have understanding of. So I've put together a CPD accredited course for that. And I think that's it. And we're going right through to April. So if you're interested in training, check the website. If you go to edelfchildtherapy.com and go to the training tab, you'll be able to find training there. There's 2 sections. One is for therapists and one is for people working the front line. So people like health visitors, teachers, social workers. There's also some training there for you. We've got some therapy special offers on at the moment as well. If you go to the website and look at the special offers tab at the top, you'll find I've recorded a 22-minute hypnotherapy for relaxation, getting to sleep, and that's free to download for anybody in the world. So if you're interested in listening to that and you think it might be helpful, go and have a look. Download it, it's free. And also not free but on special offer at the moment is a special transition package, because it's coming up to September. It's the 28th of August today, and by the time this goes out, I'm sure your young people will be going to schools and colleges. There might be changing schools, there might be changing teachers, there might have been new staff, very well-loved staff that have left. There might be young people that have left who they were friends with, or they might be particularly anxious about getting back into school. And there are also young people who are really anxious about going to college and university. So for those people, there's a special offer on at the moment, so to help you through that transition period. So if you're interested in talking to us about that, have a look on the website. You can contact us through the website, or you can email me, Evelyn, EVALYNNE, at childhypnotherapyinstitute.com, and you can book a free half-hour consultation to talk through, to make a decision as to whether you think you want to go forward with that. So loads going on. Really, lots of sort of brilliant feedback that we're getting from the sort of training programs we're running and the therapy interventions we're doing. So it's really exciting time for us here at EdElf HQ. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce the podcast guest, and it's Silvan Ruthenberg, who some of you might remember because he's been on the show before. It was probably about a year ago now, and he's been doing loads of interesting, exciting things, been loads of developments since then. So he said he'd like to come back and give you all an update. So welcome to the show, Silvan.
Hi, Evelyn. Nice to be.
Hi, nice to have you back on the podcast after all this time. And it's really brilliant that you've agreed to come back on and talk about everything you're doing and what's been growing and developing since we last had you on. You were a very popular guest the first time, so I'm sure that people are going to be really keen to hear everything you've got to say.
I'm very excited to be here again and be chatting with you. So it's literally almost a year now. I think.
Almost a year. So let's start the show like I'd like to do when I remember to do it, with gratitude. And so I'm going to start then. So I was thinking about this, thinking I'm grateful for so many things. I could take up the whole podcast hour. So I'm going to try and be brief as I can. So I'm really grateful to be feeling well today. You and I were meant to record this show last week, and then I put it off, and then I had to put it off again. I was really low in energy, and we were just talking, weren't we, before going on air, about you have to just follow your body.
Absolutely, yeah. It's like sometimes there are those days you feel that your body needs rest, or even your brain needs rest, and then that's the time. If you haven't done it before, you have to take the time to rest and recharge, because going past depletion, from experience, I can tell it's not a good thing.
Yes. Now, I've experienced full burnout before, and absolutely been not able to work or do anything for sort of 3 months. And that's happened to me twice in my life. So I'm really aware now what my body's saying, but also, I don't know if this is a neurodivergent thing, particularly. Some people might relate to this, but I'm not very good at remembering to eat well. And I go in phases where I'll be really super healthy with my food and really conscious of it. And I find that if I plan what I'm going to eat for the week in advance, and I have time maybe on a Sunday to prepare some meals, freeze some meals, and write down what I'm going to eat when, I'm better. I teach a lot on weekends. So when I'm teaching at weekends and I don't do those things, I find that through the week, I find it really difficult to remember. I just get hyper focused on my work, and then it can be hours into the day and I haven't eaten anything. So I had a little think. I went for a big walk out in nature, connected up. That's what I call it. And I had this message coming through, which I think is just from yourself. I think it came from me, but I needed to connect with myself. And that's how I do it in nature, which sort of was saying, you're not looking after your vessel. Exactly. And I was thinking, okay, this is my vessel. This is my physical form. And I realized that actually what I've been doing is eating way too much sugar, having those kinds of energy boosts, and then probably massive dip in insulin. And so that's probably why I've been super tired a lot of the time, just no energy. So I've had a bit of a shift. Come on, kick yourself up the backside, Evelyn. And I've thought, right, I need a bit of a detox from sugar. Went out and bought loads of healthier nuts and fruits, and not loads of fruits because there's sugar in fruit too. So, and actually, I've only done that for a couple of days, and I'm feeling like 100% better today. Mm. So I'm really grateful for that inner voice, and I'm really grateful for my health today and being able to meet you and get our podcast recorded. So what are you grateful for?
Yeah, I probably could also talk hours and hours. What I'm really grateful for at the moment is being in my new job, getting up in the morning and smiling every day, and having way too much energy, being able to work pretty much 24 hours. If I didn't know, my vessel needed some rest in between. But it's just so exciting and it's so fulfilling. And then feeling healthy, because I've been also, like COVID did leave me with some issues for a while as well. So, and that's been sort of resolved, and it's great. So like feeling your body is as it should be, and it's doing what it should be doing. But why I had to smile when you said what you were grateful for is I'm the exact same. And to avoid exactly that, because last week I was very focused on work. So I'm the same. Self-care is the first thing that kind of goes down the drain if I'm not really careful and have a very strict routine when I have a lot to do. So I had the same last week. I would like sit down in the morning and then it's like 3, 4 p.m. I was like, oh, I haven't eaten, I haven't showered, I haven't done this. So yesterday I did exactly that. I pre-cooked all my meals. So like I knew this week's going to be busy. So my food's in the fridge. Like I just have to take literally out the boxes, heat it up, eat it. And
I'm glad it's not just me who experiences this then, because when I think back to I'm self-employed, and I think this is where it's become really obvious and apparent to me. My previous job, I lived in and worked in a special needs school, and so I had the benefit of all my meals were cooked for me. And so I just had to rock up at the canteen and eat with all the kids, and that was great. Didn't have to think about it. Did that for a few years. Previous to that, my sons were living at home, so I'd have to cook for them. And what I used to do was cook a load of food on a Sunday lunch. Didn't teach at weekends then when the kids were at home. And then I'd literally make like 5 Sunday dinners, and I'd eat a Sunday roast every day at work. So I'm thinking of my food habits, thinking, oh my gosh, this has been for years. And this is way before I even knew I was autistic. And people used to think, because the other thing about eating the Sunday roast was I used to eat it at 10 in the morning. I used to, because I used to eat at 10 in the morning, massive dinner, and I'd feel like that was done and out of the way and I could concentrate on my work. Like, got to feed my body, but now that's done and out of the way. And then I generally didn't really eat much for the rest of the day. So by the time it got to the next morning, I'd be really hungry again. So that's kind of how I functioned for many years, many years, maybe 10 years doing that.
Yeah.
Anyway, really glad to be feeling better and to have sort of recognized some self-awareness around what I was doing. And I don't always connect with my body. I don't know if that's an interoception issue. I don't always know when I'm feeling hungry until it's really obvious that I feel unwell, hungry. No. Same with sort of body temperature, things like that. I don't often recognize when I'm really too hot. Mm-hmm. So I'm glad you can relate, and it's not just me. And I've got to say something else I'm grateful for, because I want to give a shout out. I'm really grateful to have met last week. I met online. I met a lady called Casey Davies and her colleague Sam Fleischman from the United States. And I met them because they are also doing a project called Autistic Voices in America. And they're called the Autistic Voices. It's an oral history project.
Okay, interesting.
And they interviewed me, so I had to do it quite late at night, so that it was, the right time of day for them. But I just wanted to give a shout out to what they're doing, because they're gathering autistic voices from all over the world, collecting and preserving them to making them publicly accessible. And it's the personal and lived experiences of autistic people spanning a broad range of intersectional identities and perspectives, and they are going to be preserved forever.
Wow.
As like sort of almost like archives, museum archives. So that is www.autisticvoices.org if you want to get involved with that, or you want to find out more about it. So shout out to those lovely ladies, Casey and Sam, for that amazing project, and it was a real pleasure to get involved in that. Okay, so it has been almost a year. I think it was November 22 when we last met in virtual person, and there was loads going on for you then. Lots of exciting stuff. You're one of my most popular downloads was your show, and then you just seem to have absolutely grown and grown and grown and grown and grown and grown. And so, just tell us about your sort of growth since then.
Okay, in a nutshell. I think there was one specific moment that sort of triggered everything falling into place. I see energetically, vibrationally, if you want to call it that. And that was last year. So I have been affected by COVID in many ways. And it took me almost those 3 years, 2 years, 2.5 years to come around. And I feel the one big important driver or that helps you move forward, especially after I've been speaking to a lot of people that have been affected by long COVID, etc. And I can relate in certain instances. And for me, what helped me move forward was acceptance. It sounds similar, it's not, but it's accepting. So me having spoken to people who now have, for instance, chronic illnesses or still aren't back to where they were and may not ever get there. And it's about accepting that who you are now, rather than saying, oh, I'm living with that chronic condition, or just having it, rather than saying, well, no, it's me. And that's what happened to me. I had a conversation with someone, and I was also an autistic person. And so being very blunt and direct, it hit me quite hard in the first moment. But that sort of triggered was like, yeah, okay. Yeah. Yeah. So what? Moving on now. Thanks. And that's basically what happened. Is really, I was within a week, I started getting better. I was just like, yeah, okay, this is it. This is like, that's how it is. Life is beautiful. So let's look ahead. And then, from there, that's where I kind of ended up where I am now. So in a nutshell, I started very much getting involved with the Institute of Neurodiversity, ION Institute of Neurodiversity. Round about the time that we met the first time, I had a very close contact with the founder, the steering the group that is working with me now as well, around strategies and talking through where we're going now, where we are now. And I got very passionate about it. I loved the work and was also able to project manage part of the UN, the WAAD 2023, so this year's United Nations World Autism Awareness Day. We, as ION Institute of Neurodiversity, co-hosted the event. It's a total of 3 hours over 4 different sections. So we had home and life, we had arts, we had work, and we had policy. And we had all autistic collaborators from all around the world. We had very diverse set of people from the US, from Europe, from Africa, from Middle East. It's it's on YouTube. So if someone's interested, just Google it on YouTube and go on the website and you'll find the links. It's also linked in my LinkedIn profile. It's worth watching. I cried when I watched it. They were, because some of the messages are very powerful, and some of the stories are very touching. So it's definitely worth a watch. So and then there was lots going on in working myself out in terms of self-awareness, interpersonal relationships. Because of me not being that well, that's something that kind of was a bit benched for a while. So that's something I got very heavily involved with, and really just enjoying life and just enjoying being with friends, being able to go out, being able to travel, just being out and about, really, which is something that I wasn't quite able to do for a long while. So that was sort of that. And then I left my old job in the first week of August, and then that was on a Friday. And then on the Tuesday, I started my new job.
I wish listeners could see you, because you've got such light in your eyes. You can see the passion and the joy in your face. So it's lovely to see that. And gosh, so much there then. So I think, it's really interesting that I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who can relate to that long COVID experience and what that was like. And I think it's really wonderful that you explain so beautifully that the moment you decided to accept it as you and not something you were waiting to get rid of, or something you were taking with you and you didn't want or whatever, you just kind of embraced it and went, well, that's me now, it's part of me now. And you started to feel better.
Yeah. And
so energetically, that's really interesting, isn't it?
And just maybe adding on to that, and that's also our last global newsletter also featured a number of articles. One is about language. So we, as ION Institute of Neurodiversity, we moved away from using neurodivergent and neurotypical and aligned it more to the general language, meaning it's neuromajority and new minorities, because we feel it's less confusing, because even ourselves as new minorities, we confuse when to use which word. And then for the new majority, even more so. And then often you still see a lot of articles where they say that new minorities / in that sense, they say neurodivergent and autistic is the equivalent. They use it interchangeably, for instance, which is completely wrong. So it's about having that clarity on language, really. And it also features a short article that I wrote, which is actually about acceptance. And I describe it as a dynamic concept, saying you move towards the acceptance once you have accepted it, but being accepting of yourself is a constant process, and it's a daily process. This is a weekly, monthly, yearly process. It's like always revisiting and seeing, am I accepting of everything that I am, who I am? If there are parts that you would like to work on, go ahead, but be sure that it's that you want to change for yourself and not for someone else. I think that's also something that's highly important. It's like you can change pretty much a lot of things within your behavior and how you approach and look at things. But whatever changes you make, they need to be intrinsic. So they need to benefit yourself, not someone else in the first instance.
Can I just say something on that? So I find that a wonderful statement. And as a therapist working with children, young people, and I work with a lot of neurodivergent or neuro minorities, I'm going to say now, acceptance and self-awareness is the first piece of the work that I do. And when I teach people to work with young people, that's when I say about teaching at weekends, that's what I do. I've got my own training program that I do. So helping young people, and I see this on a weekly, daily basis, to accept themselves and to actually celebrate who they are, and to normalize that there are things they might find difficult, or things that are difficult for them, or they find they don't like, or they don't want. And there are things that they can celebrate that they are really happy with, and that we are all parts, lots of different parts make our identity. And I find that that's the crucial therapeutic moment. And working with children and young people, the other point that you've just made very well is it's about them, and it's got to be intrinsic to them. And when you work as a therapist with a young person, most of the time someone else has referred them to you for therapy. Mm-hmm. And there are some children, young people who say to their parents and carers, I want help. But the majority of the time it's coming from a teacher or a school or a social worker or another professional or a parent and carer. And so I really do make sure it's ingrained in my therapists that I teach that they need to make sure that they are working congruently with the young person about what they want and what will be helpful to them. So lots of exploring of that before they even get into doing any therapy. So there's loads of self-awareness work that we do. I think it's brilliant that you've said that, because it is a dynamic concept. And acceptance and growing with ourselves is really important, and learning how to do that. So I think part of the work that I teach therapists to do is how to teach that self-efficacy in young people, of how to do these things for themselves. So they don't need to keep coming back to people like us, to solve problems for them. It's about teaching them how to really get in touch with who they are and be authentic, and acceptance. And they find it really easy, for example, to think about an animal they know, maybe a pet or someone else's pet, and think about, the things that animal can do really well, and the things that that animal just is rubbish at and will never do very well, and helping them to see more objectively that actually you accept that in that cat or that dog, that they're never going to be able to climb a tree, or they're not, they fall off things, or they're not very good at protecting the house or whatever. And yet you feel like if you've got things you're not great at, that, or you're not strong in, that's an issue and a problem, and that you should be better, So I think it's really important. It's all part of your self-acceptance, your identity, being who you are. And if you want to change something and that's going to be for your greater good, fantastic, and let's look at how you might do that. So thank you for raising that. I think that's really important.
Thanks.
So yeah, you know, a lot of what you say really resonates with me. Let's go back to the Institute of Neurodiversity. So it's ION, but if you want to Google it, Google the Institute of Neurodiversity. Otherwise, you come up with all sorts of other things that are IONs in the world. And so I'll tell you what I found out about it, and then I'd like you to tell us loads more, because let's think about what this is. What it says on the website is that the goal is to bring together 1 million neurodivergent people from 100 countries, right? And to facilitate knowledge sharing between individuals, communities, businesses, and countries to influence the world for the better, faster. So that's what it says on the website. So tell me and tell our listeners all about the Institute of Neurodiversity and why you're so passionate about it, Silvan.
Why am I so passionate about it is because it's passionate work. I am, since a few weeks, the global lead of ION Institute of Neurodiversity. So it is spelled ION, but we do say ion as in the molecule, like the smallest that you can be positively and negatively charged. And maybe I'll start quickly on who we are and how we are set up. So our keys are that we are extremely global. So I actually had a call earlier. So we are about 22 countries now where we have either discussions are being set up or have steering committees, which is super, super exciting. We are networkers. So our vision is having this global mash of local networks that all interconnect so we can take the world together. Really.
And as the global lead, then, so are you leading on all of that development?
I do a lot.
It sounds like a big task.
That much as like I work on pretty much everything. So we are a startup. We've been around since October 2021. So, and we've done 2 annual conferences with the UCD. We have a researcher professor in development humans, that is in cooperation with the UCD in Dublin. And we've run last year a conference on neurodiversity in the legal system. This year it was neurodiversity and mental health. And coming back, and my role is fundraising, for instance. It's about developing countries. It's about scaling in the sense of making sure that we have and everyone has what they need in order to grow and support the members. But I'm basically supporting wherever I can. And it's not just me, so it's me and others. So therefore, for specific purposes, we have specific groups or committees that work around policy, around fundraising, around strategy, around da-da-da. So it's not me doing everything by myself. It's me working together and steering or discussing with people, getting their inputs, their ideas, and see, for instance, what ideas can we use in a global context, and then start working with them together, lifting people, helping, talking to people, a lot of different people, hearing their stories, seeing whether we can help them lift them up somehow, get them, I've spoken to people that I almost cried when they just like having a Zoom call because it was so powerful, and not always in a nice sense. Don't get me wrong. And then I immediately go, like, you want to help. And it's for us like bringing people together. It's all about our members. Like we have surveys. We ask our members, what is your priorities? What do you care most about? And then we focus on that for that specific year, or if it's a longer term project for those years. So we are membership organizations. It's our members tell us what is important to them, and we work around it, with it. So yeah, and right now it's like, basically it's like getting us off the ground, because we've been growing so much, especially this year, that we just now need to have everything in place to be able to support that and find people to support us, and just being set up as we need to. It's hard to tell. It's like a little bit of everything, really. It's fantastic. Like you probably can see, like I hear it a lot that I get this glow in my eyes whenever I talk about it. It's as I said, like right now I could work if the day had 36 hours, I would love to work them. Some exciting work, but it's like it's some in a classical like starting a business and making sure the business has everything that it needs, so to speak, in an operational setting, and then at the same time fulfilling our mission to like help actively transform new minorities' lives, and working towards the 1 million members in the 100 countries till the end of 2025, and see how to make it happen.
I wonder what's going to happen after that. We'll have to wait and see, won't we? But I think it's brilliant. I think, do you know what? It sounds to me like I like things to be very ordered. And I find that the world of newer minorities there's so much going on. I've only discovered a small portion of that through doing this show and the work I do and stuff. And so every time I look online, there's more and more stuff to discover, which is really exciting. And I'm wondering whether, in terms of it being orderly for me, whether having a sort of global organization like the ION is about bringing as much of that together as possible, so that it's almost like not a one-stop shop, but that it's compiling all of the research and all of the policy and all of the stuff that's going on globally in this growing world.
Yeah, that's the idea. And it's like we have that global focus for once, we have that network focus for a second, and then we also care for all new minorities, no matter what age, no matter where they come from. And I think that piece around age is important, because we say from cradle to grave. So it's we want to make sure that infants are well catered for. We want to make sure that education systems are set up to include everyone and give everyone a fair chance of getting into university, changing I think there's a lot happening around that already now, because I think the movement has achieved a lot on that, and that schools and universities and higher educations and even like primary schools are starting to wake up to that they have to change how they run. The work world depends, some more, some less, I suppose. And then it's being past that is, what about the elderly? I mean, it's something that strikes me is a lot of new minorities suffer from being lonely, right? And that's a problem that gets compounded the older you get. So not being as socially outgoing, for instance, later down in life may lead to you being lonely. And then compare that with being a new minority and not being properly understood, not being properly catered for. It's just, it's a catastrophe still happening. And that's also something that needs to change. So for us, it's bringing everyone together, no matter what age. And with that voice, like having 1 million people, having that agency, then push for policy changes where it's needed, making sure that being a new minority becomes, for instance, a protected
characteristic.
Thank you.
Yes. Very interesting. I'm just looking at the website now, which is www.ioneurodiversity.org. And all the things you're talking about are really clear on the website, actually. There's a section on home and family, education, work, later life, arts, policy, research, and health. And there's also a classifieds section as well. So check out the website. I'm definitely going to be joining as a member, if I may. And also there's a Facebook group. It's on Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram. So the Institute of Neurodiversity. So as an individual, person who identifies as minor or neurodivergent in some way, how can they get involved?
They can sign up through the website. They can sign up through LinkedIn. If you are on LinkedIn, and find my profile, feel free to send a message. So yeah, there's loads of ways of getting involved, and we need everyone on board. So whatever you think you would love to contribute, get in touch, and I'm sure we find a way to collaborate and help lift each other up. And we are grateful for everyone who would like to invest time and help us making the world a better place for everyone.
Oh, and I'm sure I speak on behalf of so many people listening, and also who've seen your post on LinkedIn about it, to say massive well done and congratulations on getting the global lead position, and how lucky they are to have found you. And, because you've got so many blooming fantastic skills, Silvan, which I'll go through shortly. But as you said, the headquarters are in Switzerland, but they are growing and setting up at the moment in the UK, in America, Australia, Pakistan, Canada, France, Germany, India, New Zealand, Holland, Denmark. And that's just the ones that I could find.
We have discussions in Poland, Nigeria.
Wow.
So in a lot of countries, we have steering committees, or for instance, Canada, US, we have set up entities. UK is a set up in an entity. We have a separate Swiss entity set up. Portugal is in the midst of being set up. We have discussions also, and that's how I went into the global lead role. I'm the country, or still am, and started as the country lead for Germany and Ireland, for instance, and then moved into the global lead role down the line. Ireland is on as well, Germany, Austria. We have chats in Dubai, Iceland.
And maybe if you get Elon Musk involved, you can sort of also conquer space while you're at it. That would be wonderful.
I just remember Brazil and Panama.
Brazil and Panama as well. Wow, that's amazing. So yeah, massive well done on that. It's a huge role, well deserved. Couldn't have come at a better time for you, because I imagine if this had happened a couple of years ago when you were really struggling with long COVID, you might not have been able to step up.
No, and I think it wouldn't have even have been just for the health, really. There's the growth that happened in between and the maturing that came with the past couple of years, where I think would have been necessary to be able to fill the shoes of that role, which are the longer I'm in the role, the bigger they get. It's like the first days and weeks, you're like, oh, you're all bloomy and fluffy and just happy, and still going to be for the next, I don't know how many years. But then also you have that moment that's like the responsibility, duty piece things, and it was like, oh,
I've got to do this now.
Big, right? So it's like
it's very big,
and it's like that's like the more I work, the more it starts sinking in, really. But it's great. Yeah, it only drives me, really, to be honest.
And you're multilingual, aren't you? So I'm sure you're using the language skills you have. So what languages can you speak?
So I'm a native German. I'm pretty native level in English, French, and Spanish. I am speaking fluently Portuguese, Brazilian Portuguese. I don't really write it, to be honest. And I'm determined to start 2 more languages this year.
Any in mind, or just want to?
I have actually singled them out. So one will be Chinese.
I had a feeling you were going to say that. I don't know why, but I just thought, no, what I do know about you is that you don't do things by halves. And Chinese being one of probably the most difficult languages, along with Arabic maybe, and Japanese to conquer. I'm not surprised, I have to say, that you're aiming for that level.
Yeah. Funny, you also mentioned the second one though, which is Arabic. I had a very interesting conversation with someone about the Arabic language, and it kind of got me excited about it, because of the colorfulness, and also a lot of very old documents in, for instance, astrology, which is my special interest. They're Arabic, so at some point being able to maybe read some of that in the original language might be interesting as well.
That would be really fascinating. We'd have to get you on the show to talk about that if that happens. So that would be amazing. And I just want to go back over some of the strengths that you talk about and you're open about having, which I think is brilliant, because I think certainly being an English person over in the UK, we don't shout about our strengths enough, you know, and this is something that I'm trying to instill in young people, that it's not, people seem to think it's being arrogant, you know, and it's completely not that. It's about knowing that, all right, yeah, there were things we find challenging as people, as humans, you know, not even splitting into whether we're neurodifferent or majority or minority, but as human beings, we're not, you know, we're going to find certain things difficult. But the things that we become good at, or we are naturally innately good at, and it's really refreshing to look at your LinkedIn profile and talk about some of the things, or mention some of the things that are real benefits to you of your neurodifferent brain processing. So things like, and this all really must really shine through and be partly why you're where you're at now and why you're doing the jobs you're doing. Strong pattern recognition, for example, being innovative and intuitive, being able to think on your feet, be a creative thinker, think outside the box. But alongside that sort of creative brain, you've also got very strong analytical skills, like that pattern recognition. You're very resilient, obviously, in lots of ways, but you're massively passionate about social justice, and you're very people-centric. You know, you're a very humanist person, human, and you're very optimistic as well, and progressive in your thinking. I remember you when you came on the show last year, and you were talking about being an adaptive autist as well. We talked about that, didn't we? About you know, so you've got amazing diversity of skill sets there and strengths, and you know, I think it's really inspiring.
Thank you. Yeah, I suppose my neurominority brain and being a late diagnosed myself, only been knowing about the ADHD since 2018 and about being autistic since June 21, and that demasking process that is still happening even with me, and then rediscovering those strengths that I had as a teenager when I was still being me, really. So that hyperlexia, in the sense that I can read very fast again, it's coming back. My eidetic memory is getting much, much stronger. And even those pattern recognition and analytical things, they weren't as manifested as they are now, because the less time I spend on masking, the less energy I spend on masking, the more my brain can do what it wants to do. And I feel my biggest strength is my resilience and my determination. That's like, I want something, I go after it until I fall over, unless I fall over. Right. So
I think I relate to that too. And I've been described in the past as being like a dog with a burst football. Like, just don't let it go. I'm not letting it go. I'm not letting that go. And I think that's really interesting what you said there about the less energy you spend on masking, the more your brain can do what it needs to do. And do you know what? That is so, so true. I can give a little example that just comes to mind. When I was a very little girl, and so I'm talking about 4 or 5 years old, at school, I was hyperlexic too. I could read and write before I was 3. I can write backwards as fluently as I can write forwards. I don't know why, but that just happens. You know, precocious reading skills and writing skills when I was little. So at my primary school, we had worksheets that you did for English and maths, but next to the classroom was a playroom that had a piano in it. And when I was 5, I wanted to work super quick through the worksheet so I could get into the playroom on my own. I didn't want to be in there with other people. And I used to play the piano. No, I've never read music. And there was a moment where, after doing that, I don't know, for weeks, months, however long I did that, and I just used to play it without thinking, that a teacher crept into the playroom with some recording equipment to record me, and I stopped. I became suddenly really self-aware and anxious and self-conscious, and I stopped playing the piano from that moment on, and I've never been able to play it since. So I think that was a classic example of masking. I didn't know I was neurodivergent until I was 52. So I just thought I was embarrassed. But when I think about what you just said, I think what was happening probably was that I suddenly became super self-conscious that I was doing something different or something that was, and I used to get embarrassed about how clever I was. And I think I thought people would think, oh gosh, she's really clever. Because the other thing that happened at that school was I was too bright for the other 5-year-olds. So they put me straight in with the 7, 8-year-olds. So I was with all the big kids. Because I was so hyperlexic. So yeah, from that moment on, I was really became self-aware, and my brain stopped being able to tap into that, being able to just automatically play the piano,
Yeah.
And it just dawned on me from what you just said. So thank you for that bit of self-awareness. Thank you, listeners, for sitting with me through some sort of childhood memories there as well. You've got loads and loads of strengths, and you're talking about acceptance. So I just wanted to ask about what are the sort of things on a day-to-day basis that you find difficult and challenging?
3 words: managing a household. I like working. I love working. And I think I'm pretty good at it. But managing a household, I know how to do it. I learned it. I can. But I always say an hour of household work equals about 3 hours of work energy-wise. I'm dyspraxic, so I have to be super conscious when I clean. It's not like other people who can just like mop around. It's like I have to do everything that I do very consciously. So it takes me an insane amount of energy. Largely to not hit myself somewhere, for instance, or break stuff. And I mean, household is a very broad topic. So it's anything from kitchen, cleaning, etc., etc. Other things I'm not good at is when I'm very focused in work, I can sometimes be very self-aware, not so much aware of other people and their needs. And so it's just, I'm aware of it these days, so I can work with it and I know the triggers. But it's something that sometimes, even though I want to, it's hard because I'm just so focused on stuff and I can be very pushy. So it's like sometimes finding the moments to step back, and self-care in the sense of resting, getting enough rest. I do, but it's a very conscious effort oftentimes as well. I know exactly like how many hours of like constant sleep I need, and then I do power naps and I meditate, so I get enough rest for my brain and body. But it's like it's the routine that I need to have in and around it. And if I don't, then I get sometimes tired, for instance. Maybe one thing that is interesting about the variety of skills that I have, some of them came back over the past couple of years, and some have developed even over the past couple of years. Reason being, I was born a lefty. I didn't know that until last year, where I was with someone who was a lefty, and it was a time where a lot of stuff happened. And then I want to try writing with my left hand. And I did, and it works. I'm slow, but since then I've basically become ambidextrous, but I'm now left dominant. I told my mom the story. She said, "Yeah, you were born a lefty, and then a year before you went into school, you did everything with your right hand. You started writing with your right hand." I think I copied it because I have a very strong rotary memory. So I feel I'm most likely have copied it from my sister, who went into school a year earlier. But the side effects of my analytical skills got a lot stronger, and I've never been great at math, but I've gotten a whole lot better. And before, numbers would scare me, and now still I prefer letters and commas and images over numbers and graphs. But there's a much stronger balance in between both of them, and I'm still more learning to access that side, like brain-wise, I feel. But it's very interesting. And that's also, I feel like the variety of skills is like my CV is a journey. It's like I've done a lot of different things over the past decade. Like I've been working since since 2009. So
yeah, my CV is like that as well. You call yourself a polymath, knowledge of loads of different things. But I just wanted to come back to something you mentioned briefly earlier about World Autism Awareness Day 2023. It was on the 2nd of April, and you said you co-hosted the event, which you kind of skimmed over a little bit. So I just want to say, yes, it's on YouTube, so please go and watch that. You said it was a 3-hour event. What was it like co-hosting?
It was amazing, crazy, and a whole lot of work. So in a nutshell, we got asked, I think, early February, end of January, whether we would like to co-host by the UN. And we, of course, said yes. We were like, okay. And it grew into that 3-hour event with, I think, 40, 50, I can't remember, like 40, 50 collaborators globally, which needed to be managed and coordinated and panels recorded and people sourced. So I was one of the key people doing that. And it was, I don't know, 2 full-time jobs probably, plus my regular job. And just doing like basically spending every single 3 minutes in like helping setting things up, and a lot of goodwill from my friends and family who were very accommodating in me just not being there, being physically present but not mentally. Up at 3 a.m. in the morning to have a call. And then the UN World Autism Awareness Day 2023 was 3 hours with those 4 panels. So there was a home and life panel where we had Amanda Kirby, for instance, as keynote speaker. And then there were small video contributions from people all around the world. And then a panel. And that's went through all those sections in the same way. So we would have keynote speaker, we would have a few video contributions from across the world, and that was really from across the world. And then a few people discussing in a panel discussion, home and life, for instance, or work. So we had Theo Smith as a moderator for the work panel, for instance. And we had a Navy general as a keynote speaker for work, who was retired as UK admiral. So you see, that was the breadth of things of contributions is just showing where we are, like the intersectionality of where we are, what we do, how we impact the world already without the world even knowing. And that was the point of showing the world how much we are already contributing, and helping to make the world wake up to it. And I'm hopeful that we did that for a few people. And then really it's about celebrating. It's just about celebrating us as individuals, as new minorities. It's about connecting. It's about representing us, our voices, how we see it, how we lived it, how we experience the world, and now how other people think that we do. And then also that move away from the medical model towards the social model of disability. Not looking at deficits, not seeing us as defective or with something being wrong, rather than so the UN WAAD 2023 was really about showing the world how much we are already contributing without the world maybe not even knowing. We had people like Ludmila Praslova, who I think a lot of us know by now with her articles, Theo Smith, Amanda Kirby, and then a lot of individuals like from Panama, from all across the world, showing their experiences, showing their stories, from Europe, from Asia, from Africa. It was, it's just a whole lot. And what we were trying to do was probably also sort of reflecting what we stand for, what our mission items, like what ION's items are, which is collaboration, representing, celebrating, connecting, researching, and awareness. And we try to sort of incorporate that and reflect our members' wishes into the event. And it's, I guess, also thanking everyone who has contributed and worked with us on that project, because it also takes a tremendous amount of courage. As like I say like in our values, one of our values is courage, and I feel it's core to what self-advocacy is, having the courage to speak up. And I applaud everyone who does, and for those who can't, that's what ION Institute of Neurodiversity is trying to do, is being the voice of those who can't speak up for themselves until they can. I would love to make a shout out to everyone. So it's like, it's not only one founder, we're together about 12 people who have put their heads together for a year. So I would like to thank all the founders. I would like to thank all the contributors, all the volunteers who have donated time, who are donating the time, who are giving input, all those amazing people I have been able to talk to and listen to their story and learn from their experiences, share my experiences. We're all in it together. So like, it's a collaborative effort. So like, I can't say just one shout out. It's like everyone. So thank you for everyone who's making our work happen, and will continue to do so.
Thank you for that massive shout out, and continuing to, serve humanity in the ways that you do, Silvan Ruthenberg. So thank you so much for being the autistic voice of the podcast this time, and look forward to hearing more about it. And so you can follow Silvan on LinkedIn, as he said. You can contact him through the Institute of Neurodiversity, or contact them, or become a member yourself. Look out for the 2nd of April 2024 World Autism Awareness Day as well.
Hopefully we will be able to collaborate on that one again. We don't know yet.
Let's hope so. I'm going to check out the YouTube of this year's anyway. I'm going to watch that because I didn't know it was there. So thank you for raising awareness about that too. And I wish you well in everything you do going forward.
Same to you. Thank you so much for having me, Evelyn.
Thank you for listening. I'm Evelyn Charmer. This is Autistic Voices, and special thanks to our guest of the week.